In 1929, the world was on the brink of change. But in Istanbul, a discovery was made that would force us to rewrite our past. While converting the Topkapi Palace into a museum, a researcher found a scrap of leather. It was a map drawn in 1513 by a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis. At first glance, it looked like a standard nautical chart of the Atlantic, but then the experts noticed the bottom of the map. There, in perfect detail, was a coastline that looked exactly like Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. But here's the problem. Antarctica wouldn't be discovered for another 300 years, and the coastline Piri Reis drew, it hasn't been seen by human eyes for over 6,000 years. Mainstream science tells us that in 4000 BC, humans were just starting to farm, yet this map shows a continent without its mile-thick ice cap. Who saw Antarctica before the ice? Who had the technology to map a frozen wasteland while the rest of the world was in the Stone Age? Let's look at the anatomy of the impossible. Piri Reis was a meticulous man. He wrote in the margins that he used 20 different source maps to compile this masterpiece. 8 of them, he claimed, came from the time of Alexander the Great. Some were even older. But as the forensic team peeled back the layers of time, the math stopped making sense. In 1960, the U.S. Air Force analyzed this map. Their conclusion was chilling. They confirmed that the Piri Reis coastline perfectly matches the subglacial topography of the Antarctic, land that is currently buried under thousands of feet of ice. To map this, you would need seismic sounding equipment or a vantage point from the stars. If the anatomy of the map is accurate, it means the anatomy of our history is fundamentally broken. This leads us to the ghost civilization theory. Professor Charles Hapgood argued that a global seafaring culture existed during the last ice age. They were masters of the stars and the seas, mapping the entire planet with high-level mathematics long before a cataclysm wiped them from the record. When the Great Flood or the Younger Dryas event happened, their cities were reclaimed by the ocean. Only their knowledge survived, passed down in secret through the Library of Alexandria, eventually reaching the hands of a Turkish admiral. If this is true, our history isn't a straight line of progress, it's a cycle of destruction and rediscovery. These sailors weren't just explorers, they were messengers from a forgotten world. Now, critics have a simpler explanation. They say Piri Reis ran out of parchment. To save space, he bent the coastline of South America to the right. The Antarctica we see is actually just a distorted Patagonia. It's a tempting theory, but it doesn't explain the details. Explain the llamas. Piri Reis drew a llama on the southern part of the map. Europeans hadn't even seen llamas in 1513. How did he know about the specific anatomy of Andean wildlife if he was just guessing the coastline? If it was a guess, it was the luckiest guess in the history of the human race. The Piri Reis map remains a glitch in the matrix of time. It is a physical object that proves we are a species with amnesia. We have forgotten an entire chapter of our own story. It suggests that the story of human progress isn't a straight line, it's a cycle of destruction and rediscovery. These sailors weren't just explorers, they were messengers from a forgotten world. Now, before you hear the story of Antarctica without its ice cap, let's look at the anatomy of another lost world. In our next documentary, we're heading to Egypt to look at the water erosion on the Sphinx, evidence that it was built thousands of years before the pharaohs even existed. Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the reveal of the true age of humanity. I want to know your theory. Did Piri Reis find maps from a lost civilization, or is this just one giant coincidence? Let's talk in the comments. And if you're ready for more, click this video here to see the secret anatomy of the pyramids. I'll see you in the next deep dive.